Hello everyone, tonight we are standing at the edge of a cold, sunken floor. Something soft exhales from beneath it, soft but wet. You kneel before the hearth long extinguished and watch the sootless clay pot at its center pulse, as if stirred by some small and unseen animal. It does not move, but it radiates warmth faint but growing. The same way breath fogs a mirror, only in reverse. A warning to your fingers which no longer trust your brain. Something in the pot was sealed long ago, with hair and breath, and it's waiting. You probably won't survive. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I do here. Let me know where you're listening from and what time it is there. Now, turn off the lights, maybe turn on the fan for some soothing noise, and let's get started tonight. The pot is older than the floor. That's the first mistake of the archaeologist, not yours. You don't claim to know the difference between Bronze Age floorboards and the vaguely ceremonial scorch pattern on the pot's base. But you do notice the contradiction. The pot was placed here after the house burned, not before. And that's not how most people cook soup. This house, more of a foundation ring with planks for ribs, was uncovered on a crumbling rise that the locals call Sleep Hill. Not for the view, though. The name stuck after 3 students fell asleep here in broad daylight on 3 separate afternoons, despite full coffee and jittery legs. The kind of sleep where you forget your name and wake up with an ancient melody in your throat. They called it dream sickness in the old field notes. You came late. You always do. The clay pot was already under plastic, its rim still threaded with what looked like black yarn, but turned out to be braided hair. Human, possibly. Possibly not. Some researchers still argue whether the spiral seal found inside it, a coiled mat of brittle fur and dried algae, was a religious token or simply an accidental packing method. One claims it's a charm to trap last breath. Another says it's just seaweed and mouse skin. None of them notice that the pot heats up precisely at midnight. You do. You keep your hand a few inches above the rim, and the warmth is gentle, reassuring even. Like a cat, or a fevered child. It pulses in waves as if it breathes with you. Only it doesn't. It breathes first. You laugh, but not out loud. You didn't tell anyone you were coming back here tonight. Not the team, not your sister, not even the person who technically owns your shadow after you lost that bet in university. It's a long story. You'd lose the bet again. The night is still. Except for the rustling of broom grass just outside the warped window frame. Wind here moves like it's trying not to wake something. You look again at the pot. Its lid is sealed shut with a waxy residue that was once fat. Something has etched a ring of tiny footprints along the rim. Not human, not mammal, not anything you recognize. They look like wind walking in circles. Old myths from this region mention the night singer, a forest spirit that lives inside sealed containers. It's said to hum softly until someone listens too closely, and then it climbs inside their ear to sing them hollow. You used to joke that it sounded like your aunt's voicemail. Now you're not laughing. The pot's warmth intensifies. Not enough to burn, just enough to remind. You lean in. There's no sound from within. But your breath catches anyway, as if the air between you and the pot is listening harder than you are. This is the part where you say something rational, like it's geothermal trickery or thermal mass from the buried stone, but you're crouched in the center of a burned-down house where nothing else is warm. Also, the pot responds when you whisper. You tried it once during your second visit. A joke, really. You leaned close and whispered, "Are you still hungry?" The pot bloomed with heat just for a second. You left immediately. You didn't sleep that night. You forgot how to taste salt. You dreamed of teeth buried in clay. When you awoke, your pillow was damp, not from sweat. It smelled of brine and something like fennel. You told yourself it was a coincidence. Like the way old seeds sometimes sprout in pottery found in graves. Or how one Mesopotamian tomb held a sealed jar that still smelled like roasted onions after 4,000 years. True story. Look it up. But this jar was never buried. This jar was waiting. You reach for it again, only this time you don't pull back. Your fingers brush the edge of the seal. The hair isn't brittle anymore. It's soft, warm even. You jerk your hand away. It follows. Not physically, no. That would be too easy. But the heat, the pull, follows you up the spine right between the shoulder blades. You shiver even though nothing's cold. You step back and catch your breath. That's when you see the second pot. You didn't notice it before. It's half buried near the edge of the hearth circle. Covered in soot and char, yes, but it bears the same etched ring around the rim. No hair seal, but something like a blackened feather dangles from the lid. You shouldn't open it. You probably won't survive. So you reach down and something exhales again, but not from the pot, from behind you. And that's how you learn the other truth about this hill. It doesn't just put people to sleep, it wakes something else. You don't turn around. You hold your breath and become a shadow inside your own body, perfectly still, the way certain fish feign death when a current changes. It's not bravery, it's instinct. And the breath behind you does not come again. Instead, the second pot shifts in the ash only slightly, but enough to make a soft scraping sound against stone. You flinch. That sound shouldn't carry in the dry air, but it echoes like it has teeth. Later, when you review your notes, you'll notice you never recorded a second pot being cataloged. Only one ever mentioned, the warmth one. The sealed one. So either the second pot is newly uncovered, or it was never meant to be noticed. You count to 5, then 10, then a number that doesn't have a word anymore. You turn around slowly. The room is empty, of course. Except now the old woven mat near the threshold, the one you stepped over on the way in, has shifted. Slightly closer, like it had exhaled and wrinkled. The mat you now remember was traditionally placed in ritual dwellings to hold the imprint of guests. Not human guests specifically, just guests. Spirits mostly. Hopes. A good recipe sometimes. There's a carving at the edge of the wall you missed before. It's faint and low, like something meant to be seen by someone crawling or very small. A looped spiral inside a square. The same shape stamped into the first pot's waxy seal. The symbol of containment, you recall. Or maybe of hospitality. Some say it's the same thing. There's an old Anatolian legend about a clay pot that, when sealed with breath and hair, could store not just air but memory. Specifically the memory of fire. When cracked even slightly, the pot would warm as if remembering the flame it once held. The pot could not burn you, but it could remind you how you burned. You whisper, "Why are there two?" You don't expect an answer, but something taps gently from inside the second pot. You almost fall. You catch yourself on the rim of the first. It's no longer warm. It's cold, stone cold, like it's forgotten you. The second pot taps again. You almost call for help, but that would mean admitting you're here. That you came back alone. That you didn't tell your sister you'd return to Sleep Hill even after what happened last time. Even after what followed you home in the seams of your coat. You crouch again and lean close to the second pot. There's no heat, no hum. Just that faint tick like a fingernail in a dream. You lift the lid. Of course it's empty. Of course you still hear breathing. Of course your hands come away dusted in ash, but not ancient ash. This is fresh warm, like the kind from a fire that's just stepped out to stretch its legs. You place the lid back carefully, or try to. The lid doesn't fit anymore, as if the pot has swollen. You find yourself laughing again. Quietly, too quietly. You think, maybe the first pot was to warm me, and this one is to cool me down. The joke helps. Until you remember clay doesn't change shape after firing. Not like this. Not unless it's never truly cooled. Some researchers have argued that the spiral seal symbol is older than writing itself. Appearing in multiple Neolithic sites across Eurasia, it may have been an early glyph for preservation or a warning. One theory posits it references breath captured during burial. Another insists it's simply a decorative motif inspired by the motion of stirred porridge. You prefer the porridge theory. It implies comfort. Outside, the wind shifts, and with it the pot hums. Not loudly, not musically. More like the memory of a lullaby heard through walls. One you used to know. one that may have been sung by someone who didn't have lungs. You step back again and realize the mat at the threshold is gone. Not moved. Gone. You check your pockets instinctively as if maybe you stole it by accident. But no, your hands are empty, except, no, that's not your hand. It's not anyone's hand. It's clay molded at the shape of a hand, cold and fragile, resting just behind you in the soot. The fingers curled in a familiar gesture, the old sign for silence. You swallow nothing, and the pot sings again. You whisper, "What do you want?" This time, something answers. Not with words, not with a voice, but with a weight in your chest that feels like mourning. A warmth returns not to the pots but to your lungs, like someone else's breath now lives there. It feels like company. And then, from the far corner of the ruined room, something rises. Not visually, no shadow, no form, just the awareness of a presence adjusting its weight after a long sit. You hear the faint crackle of ash, the rustle of hair. Something steps over the invisible mat. Something accepts your invitation, and the pots, both of them, begin to hum in harmony, not music, not language, just resonance, like they're remembering a song together. One last joke rises in your mind. I guess it's true. What they say? Never open a pot unless you're prepared to be the next thing sealed inside. You smile. You don't laugh. You don't have the breath anymore. You wake up exactly where you were, only not how you were. There's a sound in your throat like the start of a word, but you didn't try to speak. The warmth is back, but not in either pot. It's somewhere beneath the floorboards. You remember there aren't any floorboards, just ash coals and old soil pressed hard by time. But something now shifts beneath you as if settling in for the night. Like a large animal curling up just under the surface. You try to stand. Your knees feel full of dust. Outside, it's still night, but not the same night. There's a glow pale and milky from the west, too low to be the moon, too fluid to be fire. You realize it's not light, it's steam, rising from the earth like breath from a cracked lid. Your breath catches again and you realize it doesn't come naturally anymore. Each inhale feels borrowed, like it's waiting to be returned. You don't recognize your own sigh. The second pot is gone. The first remains, but the seal is broken now, not shattered, just delicately peeled like someone with long fingernails lifted it in sleep. A single strand of hair rests beside the rim, not yours. Curled, pale, still warm, a joke forms. Well, someone clearly needed a midnight snack. You don't laugh, the pots might. You step outside and notice 3 faint footprints in the dirt. Child-sized but elongated with toes like pressed leaves. Each step leaves behind not just a depression but a warmth like the earth was momentarily comforted by their passing. There's a saying, probably fictional, that Neolithic villages were arranged in circles to make spirits feel at home. Spirits, it was believed, preferred not to walk in straight lines. They looped. They spiraled. They echoed. Much like grief. That might be the most accurate thing you've heard this week. You follow the footprints. You shouldn't, but you do. They lead toward the tree line, which you remember only distantly. Trees that weren't there yesterday, or maybe you didn't look closely enough. These trees have no leaves, but they shimmer slightly at the edges like they're being remembered into existence. Beneath one of the trees, if you can call it that, rests a circle of clay shards, not broken, arranged, as if something was taken out, not shattered. At the center of the circle is another strand of hair. It flutters even though there's no wind. You kneel again. Everything in this story happens when you kneel. The clay shards feel warm beneath your fingers. The arrangement resembles a star or a flower or something between. One shard has a symbol etched deep on its inner surface, a spiral, with a tiny breath mark beside it. A rare glyph found on only 3 pots across the continent, all from different millennia. Some scholars say it represents exhalation as offering. Others think it's a stylized snail. You prefer the snail theory. It implies slowness, caution, a creature carrying its house and its past on its back. A wind rises again, and from behind you, the first pot sings. Only it's not there anymore. It's with you. You turn slowly and find the pot now resting on a low shelf of bark set into the nearest tree. As if the tree had prepared for this, it pulses again, warm, familiar. But it's not the same warmth. It's not welcoming anymore. It's expectant. As if asking, "What will you put inside me now?" The warmth begins to rise from the ground, spreading in spirals, and you see the outline of something under the soil. Many somethings. Rows of shallow hollows, each the size of the first pot. No bones, just impressions. Like breath had once been buried here and dug back up. There's a story from an early gravesite on a Baltic peninsula, one that was later lost to erosion, where a circle of pots was found arranged around a fire pit, all sealed with moss and nettle fiber. Inside each, a fragment of hair, a stone, and a single seed. The seed had been boiled, not planted. Some researchers believed it was an offering to make sure the dead didn't wake hungry. Others claimed it was a preservation technique like pickling sorrow. You think maybe both are true. You step into the ring of impressions. Not by choice. Not quite. The ground tilts gently toward the center, like the earth is offering you an explanation or a place to kneel once more. At the very center, there's a depression without a match. A pot was meant to be here, or still is. You blink. The pot is in your arms. When did that happen? You don't remember picking it up. You don't even remember moving. But your fingers curl naturally around the rim, and the hair sealing the lid begins to stir in your grip. Not from wind, from within. The pot is singing now, not loudly, not in words. But the vibration runs down your arms and hums in your chest. You feel your breath sinking with it. You ask the only question left. Who is sealed inside? No answer. Just warmth. You kneel, and the pot opens. Not broken, not forced, it just breathes. And for a moment, just one, you remember a face you've never seen before. A face remembering you back. Then darkness. Not cold but thick, spills into your eyes. You taste fennel again. And something older. And from the tree line, the second pot begins to hum. There's a sensation that precedes vision, texture before shape. Warmth before light. That's what greets you next. Not sight, not thought, just the soft cradle of humidity on your skin, as if your body has been placed gently in the hollow of something alive. You open your eyes to twilight, but the color is wrong. The sky is green. Not the green of plants or storms, but of oxidized copper, of ancient lakes leaching into bone. You're in the same forest, but it has remembered itself differently. The trees are taller now, not just older, but aware, their branches heavy with strips of braided hair fluttering like flags in windless air. The pots are everywhere. Some balanced on stone cairns, others nestled in forked roots. One hangs by vine from a branch directly overhead, swaying with no motion. They all hum, not together, not in harmony, but like a crowd of people whispering slightly out of sync. It should be horrifying. It isn't. It's lonely. You walk forward, though it feels more like being invited. The air is thick with clay dust and something sweeter like fennel again, or anise, or breath held too long. As you move, the pots quiet as if listening. You wonder if they're waiting for you to speak or simply assessing if you still remember how. There's a clearing ahead. You know it's meant for you. You don't know how. You don't remember asking. But the arrangement of the stones, the spiral pattern carved into the soil, leaves no ambiguity. At the center, a single pot, wider than the rest, low to the ground, covered in thousands of fingerprints. Some large, some small, some with extra joints or missing digits. The clay glistens like it's still wet. You already know what it is. This is the first vessel. You kneel again, always kneeling. Your legs know the position before your mind agrees. A ritual doesn't require belief, just repetition. And you are very good at repeating things you don't understand. There's a hollow hum beneath your ribs, and the pot in front of you responds, echoing the same tone. You don't speak. Your breath does. a low wheeze shaped into memory. You see images, not visions, not dreams, just after images burned into the eyelids of time. A woman leaning over a fire? A child's hand pressed into clay. A spiral drawn with a stick and forgotten in the dust. A breath captured and sealed, not as a trap but as a promise. If you ever forget me, this will remember. You feel it now. The reason the pots grow warm at midnight. That's when memory loosens its grip on the body. When the breath becomes vulnerable to return. When everything you've buried stirs and asks, "Do you still carry me?" There's a joke here somewhere. You can almost hear yourself saying it. I guess this is what they meant by emotional baggage. But your breath doesn't move. Your ribs don't laugh. The first vessel tilts slightly as if leaning toward you. Not demanding, just listening. You reach forward. Your fingers press into the clay and leave no mark. You whisper, "What do you want me to remember?" The spiral beneath your knees begins to glow faintly, as if lit from below by embers that never died. The hum deepens, not louder, just closer. You feel something coil behind your eyes. A real ancient fact for you archaeologists in modern-day Syria once uncovered a cache of sealed jars, each containing nothing but a twist of fabric and a small clay disc. At first, they were dismissed as ceremonial toys, but chemical analysis revealed the cloth was soaked in blood and the discs held faint impressions of teeth. Children's teeth. Some argued the jars were used in mourning rituals. Others insisted they were protective charms. One researcher dismissed at the time suggested the jars were memory containers designed to hold the essence of someone lost. You no longer dismiss her. The pot opens, not with sound, not even with movement. Just a sensation like skin unpeeling from a scab. You feel heat rise not from flame but from recognition. You smell something you haven't smelled since you were a child. You see a room that's been gone for years. You hear someone saying your name, only not your name. A name you wore before language, perhaps? A name you shed like skin. You do not cry. The pots do that for you. Behind you, you feel the spiral closing. You have placed your breath inside. Or perhaps retrieved someone else's. It's unclear now which direction time is flowing. The forest rustles with warm silence. And then, a sound behind you. A third pot. You didn't bring it. You didn't notice it. It was never cataloged, but it sits just behind your right foot. Smaller, simpler. The lid is open. Empty. Waiting. The spiral inside is incomplete, as if it's meant to be finished by you. And the air around it smells unmistakably like the inside of your coat. You're not sure when you sat down. The forest has grown darker, but not in the way the sun fades, more like someone dimmed memory itself. The pots don't hum anymore. They listen. That is worse. The small open vessel before you is clearly newer. The clay is rough, uneven. Still soft in parts. It's not yet a pot. It's a question. One that wants you to finish speaking. You remember something the folklore archivist said on your first day at Sleep Hill? Not all vessels are for holding. Some are for letting go. The trick is knowing which direction you're sealing. You thought it was metaphor, a joke maybe, but now the pot before you holds your shape in its rim. The mark of your touch. It's your pot, the one the forest made for you, or the one you made the moment you breathed into this place. You lean forward, not to whisper, to listen, and that's when it begins. A breath escapes the pot not from within but from before. The warmth coils up your arms, settles beneath your collarbones, and echoes in your teeth. You don't understand the words, but the tone is unmistakable. Recognition. From something older than words, but shaped like you. The pot doesn't want your fear. It wants your memory. One memory. A single offering. You close your eyes, search your mind. The forest leans closer, curious. You think of your sister. The time she locked you in the pantry to scare you and then couldn't find the key. You'd cried until your breath fogged the grain jars. She fed you dried plums through the crack under the door. You remember the scent of clay and hair and warmth that didn't belong. Your mouth forms a shape, not quite a word. but close enough. The pot accepts it. The spiral completes itself. You feel something settle, not relief, not release, but placement. You have placed the memory. Now it is no longer yours. It is remembered for you. That is the price and the gift. One ancient belief from the Orkney Isles held that breath once spoken over water could be collected again if the listener held a vessel to their lips at just the right moment. Some said it brought clarity. Others swore it stole voices permanently. One potter reportedly died of silence after shaping his own burial urn while humming. Some researchers still debate whether that's myth or metaphor. You now suspect it's neither. The air grows still again. You turn, and the clearing is gone. No spiral, no first vessel, no trees with hanging hair. Only the ruin of the old house, its stones shivering gently in the wind. It's almost morning. You're seated at the hearth as if you never moved. The first pot is gone. The second too. Only the third remains, yours. It's cool to the touch now. Finished. You stand. Knees creak, muscles ache, but breath returns like it belongs to you again. For now. As you step through the warped doorway, something crunches underfoot. A tiny clay shard. Etched with your name, not the one you use now, but the one you just gave away. The wind shifts. In the distance, 3 pots begin to hum. You don't look back. You carry the pot in silence. Not out of fear, but reverence. It does not rattle. It does not speak. But sometimes when you breathe too quickly, it warms in your coat and reminds you to slow down. Not everything sealed is a secret. Not everything forgotten is lost. At night, you set it by the window. And some evenings, if the air is still enough, you catch a faint sound from inside. A breath you almost recognize, a laugh you'd nearly forgotten. And though you cannot name the face it belonged to you, sleep easier knowing someone remembers you. Somewhere, a spiral glows in the dark, never quite closing. Waiting, not for return, but for echo.